I love crazy business models. I love crazy ideas. Remember when Lilium was pitching, or Isar Aerospace building a rocket in Munich, and they were successful.
You have now built the world's largest space entrepreneurship network. You have supported over 1.8 thousand startups, Leaf Space that you backed in 2014, Isar Aerospace in 2017, the exploration company in the same year. These were all crazy ideas that sounded completely insane in the very beginning.
When the people realized that this was growing, becoming successful, there were people on the highest level trying to block it and to kill it.
After seeing those success cases, the biggest one that went through ESA BIC, what else that we discussed do you see as a common thread between them than the ones that didn't make it at the end?
Space is humanity's greatest laboratory. Defense is democracy's strongest shield. And today, in workshops, in laboratories, in startups, a new generation rises, not to observe history, but to write it, where every innovation above drives progress below, where every breakthrough in defense preserves our freedom to create. Behind every breakthrough stands a founder with a story. Now these stories emerge to light the path for those who follow. Welcome to Rockets and Radars.
Okay, let's get into that. So before we get into the story, can you tell us from the very beginning what ESA BIC actually is for founders who have never heard of it, and why did you create it in the first place? Just to get a big picture before we get into your personal story.
Sure, Martin. That is a super question, and I have heard it so many times, and it depends the answer who's answering it. So the idea in general was a tool helps entrepreneurs, early entrepreneurs, even when you have just the dream, idea, 3-4 people with a crazy dream. And I give you an example when you were the 3 founders of ESA Aerospace or Lilium or ClearSpace or others. So it should be with the support towards the startup. It's an easy way where you get, in that time when we started that, it was 50K cash without big bureaucracy, without being in the ESA system, but still getting the ESA logo, still getting ESA contract. So there's a nice saying, when you go fishing, you have to take care that the worm is tasty for the fish, not for the fisher. So the customer was not ESA, the customer was not the member states, the customer was not the industry, it was the startups. You get parents, you get partners, you get the family, you get the right branding, you get the support, technical, marketing, finance, and it's a little bit tailored to what you need. So, and it's something which is not over after 3 weeks, 3 months. Normally it lasts 2 years. So it's a membership to a club of entrepreneurs and people supporting you. That was the idea. And I think more or less it still is. With a little bit
Awesome.
more
A very, very good pitch. You have worked on it for a long time. I can see that. But the ESA BIC has had a history for sure. And just to be practical here, for people that might think, wow, okay, how do I sign up? Would you have in a few words a quick guide on what should I do if they
So, of
decide
course,
to?
I'm out of the ESA BIC program since a couple of years now, but the idea is that you can apply in your member state. Yeah, you don't have to move fast. So placing entrepreneurs to another place, another country is a bad thing. So as I said, it should be customer friendly. It should be focused to the startup company. And normally it's all online. You apply. My advice is speak with the incubation centers, because there's one misperception. It's not ESA running it. It's a franchise model. And by the way, it's the
Good to know.
best co-funded program of ESA, because 70% of the funding comes by the partners, by the member states, by the industry, by universities, space agencies. So it brings all the people together. So it's your local, I would say, Apple store, your Apple reseller of your choice, where you knock on the door and they're here to help you to make a better application. So really speak with them. And I know still most of the incubation managers, they are your brothers and sisters helping you with the application, and hopefully also on the ways to the future.
Awesome. So when somebody is listening or watching, sign up locally. You will find them probably in a near place near you. And for
Yes.
ESA BIC, if you will see a spike in signups, is because of this interview. Okay, great. Let's get into the personal side of the story, which is not addressed as much as it should. Who is Frank when he's not building space ecosystems?
Yeah, this is. I still am entrepreneur. I'm still a little bit stubborn in my views because when Steve Jobs said it very nicely that your dots of your career only connecting when you're looking backwards. If you're on a startup company, a lot of things you do makes no sense. So I like travel. I like hiking. I like the mountains. I like skiing, but I also like to see diving. I like relations. I like to help people, help to start up companies, and be engaged. I think this is for a lot of people in the space industry. Be engaged. Maybe I'm a little bit black and white. I was not consequent enough in my entire career. No, it's wrong. I was not consequent enough. Some people will love me, and some people will dislike me, but that's okay. There's a German saying, a lot of enemies, a lot of honor. So I think being straight is something really in business which helps. So Frank is still an entrepreneur, and I try to be that with my friends, with my family, and beyond.
Nice, good to know. And you mentioned that you like to help. What type of companies you like to help the most, and how do people get in touch with you the fastest now?
So this is something. LinkedIn is the best. I have resigned as a vice governor from CST end of January, and I think when we speak later about my career, I'm good in crisis. I'm not good in administrating existing projects. So when I was in Apple, when I was in ESA, it was always connected to crisis, difficult situation. So normally I like crisis. I'm now becoming 57 in September this year. And I think that's the time that I help others to solve crisis. So, and I think this is something where you say a coach, because most of the solutions and to your problems, yourself, but maybe you need the right wind, the right push in the right direction. And I think this is what at least the older space generation should do. Get in contact to me, but I will be selective because my time is
Of
X
course.
limit. But this I will do with some companies here in Saudi, here in Europe, and focus. And as I work can also be a little bit fun. It's nice to work with smart, bright people, and you're still good enough after a hard working day to have a beer in the pub.
Nice. And is LinkedIn the best channel to get in touch?
Yeah, because it's of course email is better, WhatsApp is better, but you have to channel it. So I'm not a big fan of WhatsApp, even when I have to use it, because you cannot sort it, you cannot file it, you cannot. Email is the best. In LinkedIn, there's my email connection, so write me email, and normally there's no stupid question, there are only stupid answers. So you're always get an honest answer from me. This is what I can promise to everybody.
Okay, great. So if there is anyone that this resonates with, get in touch with Frank. Okay,
And
let's
Martin,
go.
by the way, the same. We
Yes.
started the same. We started with LinkedIn. We get in contact, said, I don't have time. Let's move it. And finally, we're here. Thank you so much for you being so patient with me.
Thank you to being here. Okay, let's go back to where this all started. You were 14 years old in 1983 when your father took you to Saudi Arabia for the first time. He was working on this massive pipeline project, basically building entire cities from scratch in the desert. What was that like for a teenager from Bavaria back then, if you remember?
I still remember it because when you're young, when you have new, you burn it into your brain. And, I think that nobody was traveling outside of Europe in my
Mm.
class. So when the people heard Saudi Arabia, they said it was so far away. It could be on another planet. So, and my father told me to see it with my own eyes and don't prejudge. And which I did. And he wrote me this long letter. And for me, it was 1001 night. It was a different planet. I loved how the hospitality, I loved the ambitions that time. And it's funny that you mentioned these two cities, Jubail and Yambu. They are on both sides of the Gulf, on the Arabic Gulf, on the Red Sea. And they were building this pipeline. And this is the pipeline we are discussing at the moment where the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia pumps now the oil to the Red Sea and provides the source because they had this problem already 20, 30 years ago. And then they said, okay, we're investing into this giga project. So I saw blueprints and I asked my dad, what is this? It's a school. What is a hospital? This is housing. What is there? Nothing. They build it out of nothing. And I think that these ambitions and to fulfill it, not every giga project maybe work, but some, and really doing it consequent until to the better end. So where my dad was involved was the Royal Commission of Yambo is now used, especially in the crisis we're seeing in the Gulf region, to move the oil from one side of the country to the others. So therefore, the importance you maybe not always seeing right away, but the ambitions and the problems they had, because there was no fax, there was no internet, they did it all from scratch. A little bit like our space industry. So everything can be done. If you are willing and if you're brave enough, everything can be done. And if people say it's not possible, don't listen to them. They only want to stop you. And I think this is something which I got, maybe it was not with the mother milk, but maybe a little bit later from my dad.
And apart from anything can be done mindset, what else did you took from that early exposure to those huge or ambitious mega projects that shaped your thinking on who you are right now?
The world is much bigger than Bavaria, Germany, or Europe. And they're different. It's like time. There's not one time. Depends how good you measure the time. You have to be realistic. The other countries, other systems. You work with them. You don't prejudge them. You work with them because it's their country. And if you accept other cultures, other business models, you can adapt them. You can work with them. And you can be very successful. And you can be also very happy. I think these one size fits all, this is at least what I learned as a child, doesn't work. Even when I was speaking too well English, I didn't got what I want because the guy was coming from Bangladesh, Pakistan, and his English, because he was a low level, was not as good. My still English is not good, but in that time, you have to see, you have to adapt. It's not the world have to adapt to your needs.
Very good one. Okay, let's forward by 10 years. You're in your 20s, studying in Germany, and somehow I found in research needed money. So you started working at the Apple Computer as a student helper. For the audience, this is pre-iPhone, right? Pre everything we know for Apple for today. And you eventually meet Steve Jobs and rise to sales manager for Central Europe. What did those years at Apple teach you about how to do real innovation and how to build the teams in the right way?
Yeah, I think it was the only job I applied where I got the job. All other jobs somehow were approaching me. So, and Apple in the 90s, it was 93, and later Steve returned, and it was a small company. It was the opposite of this European or German university system, very hierarchical. It was the opposite. You can do it, you get the job. Yeah, it does not matter which title. So I think that was, for me, it was a shock, when the boss of Central Europe was coming and say, hey guys, you have space on your table, and we were all students. I was good in a program called Persuasion that was before PowerPoint. A half year later, I was the ghostwriter of the boss of Apple Europe. So this is not because you're a student, you're good in things. So, and therefore I think selecting your team and in seeing the capability in people and the potential is so key. When I look into our European structure, especially the Latin structure, it's about titles. Titles count more than people, capabilities, spirits, and I would say the eagerness to prove that they can implement something. So I think there's and Apple it was a time where Microsoft was giving a loan of 175 million to Apple, that Apple survived. People forget that. Apple was the white knight against the dark of evil. It was super small.
IBM,
And trust me, I still have T-shirts. I still say we when I speak about Apple. So it was really, this is the reason I still have no Windows computer. Once shake hands with Steve, your genetic code is completely changed. So I think it was great because you can really, with the right people, hammer a dent into the universe.
What can Europeans learn from this time when you were at Apple, especially around the culture part, right? We are very hierarchical. Oh, that's a hard word to say. We have a big hierarchy, right? So what do you think it is one thing that European companies now, especially in the space industry, could take from that time of you being in?
So I think when we look to some startup companies, if it's Aurora Tech, I see it from the Orbit, Reflex and others, it's the mindset, is the people, by pressure, you get maybe 90%. By passion and that you're really part of this community, you get 200%. 1,000, I don't know, to 100. We're realistic. I think that's something when it's really a people company, if you have people managers and the branding definitely helped, because branding is so powerful. And Apple has a unique branding, and it still has. It was still the time of the colored. And this, by the way, is all the products of Apple from the first beginning. It's the product tree of Apple. So that's you're addicted to it. And I think that's, if you have this, this spirit, you have maybe in the military, you have that in the fire brigade, you have it at coal miners. You want to have the same at your startup companies. When you have people bringing this harmony in that spirit, fire them, lay them off. So this harmony is super important, and because then you really can do things other companies can't with a much smaller head count. It's if you're asked why you want to work for ESA, maybe NASA. You want to the people which say, I would even work for free there. You need this hard blood and the devotion of the people. Then you got your right crew.
You nudged the topic of branding multiple times, and it might be controversial, but I believe that European space industry is not that good at branding, at least yet, right? What do you think the whole European industry can take from Apple that you learned on building their brands in a stronger way?
I would not say that everybody can learn, but I will give you an example.
Of course.
Why the ESA BIC was so successful, we used the unified branding. It's always the ESA logo and BIC, and it's a franchise model. The only thing we were changing, and this was, I think that was a smart piece, ESA BIC, Bavaria, Turin, Italy, Switzerland, Bulgaria, blah, 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 blah. It's always the same. So with one branding,
smart.
and by the way, this was also part of the success, because it's like McDonald's. Everywhere it was popping up and the people were surprised. So branding, and you have to be brutal. I remember that we made a product, a catalog was 500 pages, and the printing company was printing the Apple logo in the not correct Apple colors. And he tried to say, Frank, you get a 50% discount. I said, no. I said, what do you know? Scrap it. It's not the color. Branding, you have to be consequent. And I think this is, but a lot of people don't do it. They like to reinvent new logos and things like this. So if you have a good branding, keep it. Don't change it.
And there might be some listeners or people watching this that might have a company producing, let's say, some components for a spacecraft, right? So it's not per se a franchise business or not them McDonald's or Apple or ESA BIC, right? What would be your advice to them to take to become better at marketing themselves and telling their story better to the industry?
I give you first, I think everybody should wear the branding. And people remember I was riding around with a nice chat. Is a space solution on the back. I need more space, and we change it. We need more space. So you have to live it yourself. So if you have a great component, fine. If you go to your shop and because you need a sun cream and you see 5 others and you see Nivea, you take Nivea. Yeah, so if you are the component, they say, there are only 2 companies which are world leaders in injection pumps for cars and trucks. One of them is Bosch. Everybody knows Bosch. Even when it's a component, your component or it's a water battery, your component is key. It's Pioneer Radio. You want to be the Bosch injection pump. You want to be Shimano on the bikes. It's up to you. Yeah, but you have to really play it from the beginning. It comes with a certain message
mindset
to the customers,
yeah.
And mindset, and also play it consequently.
Okay, great. Let's get into the next big milestones in your story. In 2000s, you left Apple to co-found Tandy, your new company or startup, with Klaus Weinmann as the chairman. You scale it to 350 people and successfully exit when it merges with Cancom. I'm very curious, what did building and exiting your own company taught you that working at Apple couldn't?
Yeah, if you're an Apple, you're an employee. You're thinking budgets and so on. And I remember when we were going to the CeBIT, which is a computer show, and I said, okay, who really has to go? Because we had to save money. It's about not spending money, it's spending the money in the right way. And the market manager said, yeah, but I paid out of my budget. I said, it's wrong. Left pocket, right pocket, doesn't matter. So if you have a share in the company, you learn to become an entrepreneur yourself. And a lot of companies fail because they do not understand what they spend. Is it responsible or not? So, and when you say successfully exited, so again, crisis, because we started the company, we merged it up 350 people, the bubble burst, we were cash flow positive, we made money, but then we had to lay off 120%, 120 people of my own staff because we had to cut costs because our shareholder said, you have to cut costs. So it teaches you responsibility because every month you had to write 350 paychecks. You have a responsibility as a co-founder, as the management, as the C-level. This you don't have if you're just employee. So, and I still have that because when I spend money, even when I was in ESA or even in Saudi Arabia, I said, it's either taxpayers' money or it's others people's money. Can I have it cheaper? Is that necessary? The feeling for doing the right in terms of from the financial point of view is very key. You will not learn that. And trust me, if you are in the center, you have to fix the crisis. There's nobody else. Where in the hierarchy, you escalate it up. So this is the reason why I still like maybe I still exited well, yeah, so I didn't lost money, but which was not easy in 2003. But still, it's about how to manage crisis. You're responsible. Your skin in the game, and I think this is a lesson where not that many people are good in fixing crisis.
Yeah, and also this kind of concludes that it is not for everybody, right? So when I talk with engineers from TUM or other universities across Europe, they ask me like, should I start a company? And I say it depends, right? And this was a very good wrapped around what is actually the world, and the question would be, are you for it? are you the right person for it? So very great perspective here.
Martin, I totally agree. If you're not capable to lay off people, and even people which you like and you hired yourself, don't become a C-level.
Simple as that. Okay, great. And for some people, people might not know that this is the time when you enter the space industry. So tell us, you exited your company as we got into. Like, how did you get into this totally new industry after being in tech for a long time?
Yeah, and 2003 IT industry was not moving at all. And a headhunter was writing me a letter, 3 pages, perfect English, that the European Space Agency was looking for a head of commercial development of human spaceflight and exploration. And I said, wow, working with astronauts. I love space. I was designing my own spacecraft. I was making space joy. Okay, you worked for Apple, you met Steve, you had your own startup company. Working with astronauts, it's much cooler. So I thought first it's a joke of some of my buddies, but it was 3 pages. So I applied, they hired me, and the target was sending the ISS commercially 2003. NASA was against it at that time. So we spoke with Nevea, we spoke with DHL, we spoke with many company, microgravity research. That was before nanorex existed. And then next crisis, the shuttle exploded. No access to the ISS. So this was how I was dragged into ESA.
Yeah, again, crisis happening all the time. Okay, and I'm very curious about the first day. If you remember at ESA, you are literally coming from fast-moving startup world into a multi-governmental organization. Did you have any culture shock in the beginning? I believe there should have been at least one.
Martin, shock is not the right word. You know, it was a thought. I would say different orbit. Yeah, this is how it describes much better. Because one thing they told me, we have to pay invoices quicker. And you say, guys, it's cash flow. We get the money and keep it for us, because I had the entrepreneur mindset. But I had to spend money for the industry. Then I said, I need a mobile phone. Yeah, we have to organize it because it has to be requested. I said, we may request. Yeah, people have to approve if you get a phone. I said, guys, I got a salary increase. after 2 months, which I do not get automatically, but I don't get a phone. Of course I got a phone, but it's the way how you approach things. Yeah. And of course the hierarchies, and a lot of people in similar hierarchy try to block stuff, not because it's wrong, but political of power games in our organization. That's typical.
And actually, I think if we reflect, the startup world is on one side of things, maybe an extreme, just do it, very lean approach. ESA, on the other hand, is very structured, very bureaucratic. What do you think is the right balance? You live both worlds, right? Across the world, actually. So curious, what do you think here?
I think it depends for what you want to do. How you survive is maybe easy. You know, if you see Tai Chi, Aikido, it takes the power of the others and it moves it back. And I think it's like the best cuisine. It's the where the fusion cuisine starts. Fusion kitchen. You know, for example, South Tyrol, which combines the Austrians with the Italian cuisine. It's perfect. It's my favorite. So I think when things come together, this is where innovation starts. So and I think this is certain structures, procedures, and ESA are great. Is that the right thing for a startup company? No. If you spend taxpayer money, most likely it is. So you have to see the advantage when we go back to the ESA BICs, you know, you have time over several years to build and implement something. Well, you can't in startup companies. There's a reason to get an ESA contract for an ESA BIC was a 4 years contract, because the work to get all the money for one incubation center for 1 year or 4 years is the same. But with 4 years, you jump over one election cycle. So even when the government changes, you're still operational, and you need 4 years to show, 3 years at least, to show success. So I think startups should be more structured sometimes. I would love that ESA, you, OISPA, whoever they are, Sprint, takes more risk and say, you know what, this is so small money. If we do not do it, who else does? So you have to, because the innovation will come from the small companies, not from the big giants.
And based on the successful alumni from ESA BIC, what approach did they have, if you remember? Or were they having any specific approach at all? Or was it just random? Curious to see any patterns there.
Yeah, so looking to some of them, they would have started the company with ESA or without. They say, we do it anyhow. So being a little bit stubborn, crazy. I remember, you know, that Think Different campaign for everybody. Look to the Think Different campaign. These are the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the round heads in the square hole. They will succeed.
A very good point here. And I want to get back into the main timeline and got into 2004, where he convinced ESA to try something completely new, the first ESA BIC in Nordic, right? I want to understand what happened in your mind during those years from 2003 and 2004 that led you to pitch this idea to ESA in the first place.
Yeah, I would not say pitching, because I got one time a call from Monsieur Courtois. He was the CTO of ESA, and there was a program called Tech Transfer Program. There were problems, so they placed me to clean it up, and he fired even people, and so in that moment I got a lot of freedom. The head of finance, the head of legal, the head of HR, the head of procurement, everybody said, even marketing, whatever I do, please fix it. Crisis again. So I got a lot of freedom, which I slightly used. We start first with the incubation center, called it ESA BIC. Then we had Bavaria. Then we had Darmstadt in Italy. We had this one branding. So it was not pitching. We pitched it as we solve your problem by implementing something new. And we didn't ask for more budget. That was the trick.
Okay, well, that was easy to go through the process. And what do you, if you can give us a reflection, what was the initial primary purpose or objective of ESA BICs in the very beginning, and how it changed over time?
So in the beginning, the program was a tech transfer program. So space industry to non-space industry. But I said, when we help entrepreneurs, and they had already entrepreneurship activities, but as I said, it was not centric to the customer of the entrepreneur. It was making the province South Holland happy. It was member states. ESA. So you have to make the entrepreneur happy, not happy, but help them, not somebody else. So by doing that, it's another way of tech transfer. Yeah, we bring new innovation either from outside in or inside out. And a lot of people really block that. In the beginning, they were against it. So trust me, not in the first maybe 2-3 years, but when the people realized that this was growing and becoming successful, there were people in the highest level try to block it and to kill it.
And if we now go back in time, when you had your first ESA BIC in Nordvik with a handful of startups, what was your KPI to show others, especially the ones that were questioning you, that this is working? What were you measuring at this time?
I just had a call 2 weeks ago with Adriano Meta Sensing. It was one of the first companies, a great guy, Adriano. You of course, you have the numbers of companies, but ESA is a procurement agency. So you give money from the member states to the space industry. So you will be measured if you have spent your money. That's the thing you have to understand. It's not like success rate. This was coming much later. So a number of startup companies supported. I said, but I want to support not everybody. I want to support good ones. So we cut it down. So the contract was between ESA and the startup company. Said we need a middleman, because going through the security of ESA, sorry, for a startup company, it sucks, because at the weekend I cannot go inside. So we put it off the fence. There we started the franchise model. The focus is always, who is your customer? In that program, when I was responsible, for me, it was the startup company who's the customer. And this is the reason why I still have so good a relation of some of the people, because you help them as your uncle, as your aunt, as your brother to succeed. So later on, we had survival rates, numbers of jobs, and so. But this is something you can do much later. In the beginning, you can't. So in the beginning,
Makes sense.
It's a development tool for the region.
And I'm very curious, have you looked beyond Europe when building this? Let's say looking at the TTOs in the US or in the APAC region to build this in the first place, or did you start from scratch?
So one of the things is for the technology transfer, look to the entire world, from Weizmann to Stanford Research to Pasadena and so on. For the ESA BIC, they're called something EBN. We looked across Europe, a little bit of the world. And later, also during the development of the ESA BIC, we had even the proposal, we need partners for these ESA BICs outside. I think that was 15 years ago. It was South Africa, Singapore, and Saudi Arabia. But it was blocked internally. And I was arguing with this guy who was not the head of international relation anymore. He said, these small startup companies are 30 people. They're not like Airbus, which could afford an army of people in other countries. So we need brothers in arms helping us entering and going into export, because the market is not small enough. It's the only way how we can compete against bigger countries, by collaboration. And I think this year was last year, I think ESA signed this agreement with Singapore. So therefore, maybe I'm a little bit ahead of the time. In business development, do not wait. You enter the markets right away if you can. You don't wait if it's sense or not sense. If you can afford it, do that right away. So
Okay,
I think there's something you have to take into account of every country. Not bricks and walls, invest in business development.
If you can walk through me the exact selection process of an ESA BIC. So let's say that I'm a founder in the space tech, coming from TUE in Munich, and I want to pitch into my local ESA BIC. What are the 3 things that make you say yes immediately?
So there are 2 things. One, of course, is normally it's built on the team, business model, business case, and then the technology. I would say, for me, the biggest team, and this is the reason why I was always pushing my ex-colleagues to see the founders, to be in the same room. You will not get that online. You want to see that these 2 guys and this one lady speak with one voice. You want to see that they work together. And you cannot see that if you do this online, number one. So team is the most, a great convincing team. And then what I've always loved, tell me, that was one of the questions. If you don't get the funding from the ESA BIC, what do you do? I said, I'm doing it anyhow, if I get your help or not. So it's the commitment. And then I would say, I love crazy business models. I love crazy ideas. If I remember when Lilium was pitching, or Isar Aerospace building a rocket in Munich. Yeah, this is, and they were successful. I think the problem with Lilium was too many Airbus people tried to make an Airbus company out of it. You know, the spirit of the startup was gone. So,
Okay,
and
great.
I
Great
think this
insight.
is where
Next
I
one.
would focus.
I'm super
Be
curious.
straight, be
sorry.
frank. Don't camouflage.
Okay, great. I read this somewhere is that more than 75% of ESA BIC companies build downstream services, while the rest of 25% are upstream companies building actual hardware that go into space, right? Is that split by design in the European space industry, or do you think it just happened because it was harder to do upstream company?
That was never split by design because it makes no sense. I know some programs do that, but I think there is a big program, at least until I was responsible, was never. You start with application because it's easy. There was a Galileo master, Copernicus master, and I think over the time has changed. The program is based on the application of the developers, of the startups, of the entrepreneurs. So therefore, and I think now it's more hardware based, which is great. The startup and the entrepreneur is in the focus.
Definitely. Okay, and from this time, you went from 2 ESA BICs to more than 18 across 15 countries by 2017. I'm very curious, what was your strategy for scaling this program while maintaining the quality per each node across Europe?
So number one, every new partner brings a new challenge, but brings more opportunities because you have organizations like Lund University, DLR, you had STFC. So we were approached by the organizations. Most of the time, it was not even the Regional Space Agency key. When we go at STFC, it was STFC, the Science Technology Facility Council. It was our team. ESA headquarters was not happy. The ministry was not happy in UK. Later, they were all happy because once all the stones are gone from the streets and you see success, of course, everybody wants to be part of that party where the victory is celebrated. So, and I've seen it in many, many countries. So it was the same in Bavaria. The DLR, the space agency, was not supporting it. It was DLR research and the DLR or the Bavarian government. So I remember a lot of people were upset that we opened the first non-ESA establishment. Yeah, because people like to control. They don't want to share. This project is about sharing. Together we're stronger and together we become smarter if we share and we respect each other.
Very interesting reflection. Thanks for sharing that. I would love to now talk about the wild cards you backed. There are many, but we don't have all the time in the world. So I will mention a few. Leaf Space that you backed in 2014. Isar Aerospace in 2017. The Exploration Company in the same year. These were all crazy ideas that sounded completely insane in the very beginning, I can imagine. What was your process for spotting potential in those specific companies, if you remember, if you were part of the process?
Yeah, and I remember exploration companies, Aerospace, Lilium, Quantum Copter is another big company. So I was sitting in the selection, and normally in the selection group, you have a more conservative. They want everything be clicked. But, you know, if you have a success rate of survival of 75%, it shows normally we don't take enough risk. So when you see a team of young entrepreneurs which really will do it, what is this 50K? It's not my 3 years of time which is lost. It's the entrepreneur. So I think sometimes the job is, if you see that you can give wings to people and they want to fly, give them wings. So this is something where you only see it in the presentation when you speak, when you see the proposal. If you only read paper, you will not see it. You have to see the people. So this is where normally as a chairman you can. When I was a chairman, I was pushing for that, and I was pushing the rest, nudge them in the right direction. By the end, it's agreement of all the selection. Maybe not, you don't be selected the high points, but you're still supported. I don't say that is the only way that they become successful. I always say it may have contributed, and there are other programs we do the same. It's the same when you have portals matching people. It doesn't work. It's normally people matching people.
I totally agree. Sometimes when you are digital, you cannot feel the person, right? And you cannot feel ambition or passion. I think it's very hard to do it digitally. So this is something that I hope some people here in charge of other programs could take a note with. And after seeing those success cases, the biggest one that went through ESA BIC, what else that we discussed do you see as a common thread between them than the ones that didn't make it in the end?
The companies? Yeah,
Yes.
I think there are two threats. One thing comes from the organization, which do not like to have change. People hate change, And I remember a time where, I don't say the name, he said to me, Frank, the reason because you're not getting a promotion is not because you're doing a bad job, but you do not involve the management. So it's better, keep quiet, do your normal stuff, don't shake the tree. And this is dangerous. If organization starts to do that, it becomes unhealthy. It becomes impunation. Nature hates that. So therefore, impunation does not work. It's bad for species, bad for everything. So every organization have to start and reinvent themselves. And I think for the companies, you have too many companies which are not business model. They're eating up money. I think the nicest word is the zombie companies. You have so many zombie companies eating up from FP6, FP7, Horizon 20. I don't know how it's called now. Kill the zombie companies. If a tree has stopped to grow, it has started to die. You know what you do? You make firewood out of it. So cut the tree, make firewood, or give it back to the universe. But kill the zombie companies.
And when I mentioned the exploration company, Isar Aerospace, one of the few success cases from your side, I'm very curious if you reflect over the years that ESA BIC has existed, did you ever expect this level of success when you started, actually?
You don't look to the success first because it's not my success or is a big success. The success of the companies. So, but it's the same. I don't know if you have kids. Of course, you want that your kids or your nephew want to be billionaire, pilot, doctor. Of course, you expect that. So the expectation should be you want to. I got a letter, I remember, from the CEO of ClearSpace, and he thanked my team and me. And he said, Frank, without your support, we were not there. And there was the time where they were bidding against Airbus and were winning against Airbus. Is that cool? That was better than any bonus I could get.
Great. And I will turn the card a bit. If you reflect all of those years back, what was something that ESA BIC could have done much better throughout the years where you were there?
Easy one. I once asked the management, I say, can we make it a sustainable self-finance system? I collect the money for 10 years. I make an evergreen fund out of it. And we give the 50K and still now it's 60K, but that was 30 years ago. It should be double, triple. And I would make it as a convertible loan, because you could have done so much more. And if I remember my team started the first venture capital company because we put 5 million into that from ESA. So a lot of stuff. Once the stones are gone, it's all easy. I remember that one of the heads of Early Bird, they said, Frank, investing in rockets, we will never do. By the way, they invested now in Isar Aerospace and are super happy. So the job of a government organization is to de-risk in the beginning, to pave the street so that other people can take over.
And before I get into the very big chapter after ESA, a founder that I know recently told me, I will just quote him here: ESA opportunities for companies are very abundant right now, but most people in the industry have no idea what those opportunities are and when to tap into them. You have navigated the ESA ecosystem for many years, more than a decade. What would be your blueprint for those founders that are asking themselves and trying to actually find and access these opportunities outside of ESA BIC?
If you have the right idea, money was never an issue, and definitely is not today. If you have a good idea, the right team, you will find the money.
And I will stay on the topic of money. ESA BIC is pretty much a soft funding opportunity, right? And then you have their angel investors, venture capitalists, bank loans, and so forth. Based on your perspective from the ESA side of things, when do you think the entrepreneurs should start tapping into equity-based funding, and when they should try to squeeze as much soft funding opportunities as possible from either ESA or you mentioned also Horizon and others programs?
So I think there's not one size fits all, but I know that there are some programs where I told some startup companies go away from this commission funding or this, because it diverts them. Everything which keeps you online, you should do. If it diverts you too far away from the line of your business, stop it. The line of professionalism and hobby is a very thin line for an engineer. They love to do these things. Is that really core business or not? How much is helping that with my cash flow? Yes or no? Do I make money or not? Or do I lose money? If I lose money, stop it.
Very, very simple. Okay, great. Let's get into the post-ESA part of your journey. In 2022, His Excellency Minister Abdullah Ashwala calls you about building Saudi Arabia's space program. At that time, you were 53. You've got the world's most successful space incubator network, and you decide to throw it all away to move to the desert. I'm very curious, what was happening in your head at that time? And then I would love to learn as much as possible from the Saudi's space program, if we can.
So first thing, if you stay too long in one organization, it's unhealthy. I think everybody every 10 years should move. If people are too long, you become a politician in your organization. So I think from time to time, it's very healthy. So this is the reason why Jack Welch said that I think 10% of your staff have to rotate every year. Microsoft does less. So I think some organization you need fresh blood. And if people are too long on the same position, you don't have new ideas. You become more detailed or whatever. So I think when I speak about innovation and I stay too long in the same position, I'm not correct with myself, with my own values and what at I thought taking risk. So it was time to take risk again. And His Excellency Swaha, he's the Minister of Information Communication Technology, and he has, I think, 36 different mandates. And instead of a half an hour, His Excellency had 1.5 hours time, together with the head of the space agency, with the head of the national lab. And I said, wow, this is something where I can move. So if you have the chance to build something new, and you should take it. So this was my decision. So I quitted my lifelong contract with ESA. I moved down to the kingdom. I moved my kids there. And it was the best thing I did, I think, also for my boys. They're studying now in Canada and the US. And they have the same not shock or mind opener I had as a 14-year-old. They got that as a 16-year-old. You know, they have friends all over the globe. So I opened them the world. My dad opened me. So history repeats. So I like the kingdom because there are certain things which are very slow. But when in my previous job, when I got an order from the royal court and it was urgent, that means 24 hours. That means 24 hours, not reading. And after 12 hours, you get a reminder. PowerPoint report ready. If it's midnight, Ramadan, Christmas, New Year, does not matter. So sometimes I like the speed, the devotion, and the vision. If it takes 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years, we go in that direction. So when you have two people who think about the status quo and a group who thinks only about the tomorrow. With whom you want to hang up? With the group who thinks and building the tomorrow. So
This is very applicable. Thanks for sharing. And I'm very curious to learn more about the Saudi's space program in the current sense, or in 2022, which is not that far from here. How is Saudi Arabia's initiatives actually look like at this time?
you have to see there are 3 layers. You have the Supreme Space Council, headed by His Royal Highness himself. Then you have the regulator. Then you have the space agency and a PIF company who bought also up 42. So I was in the regulator. So, and I had 2 mandates. One was policy regulation. So the space law is nearly done. It is in the approval process. The bylaw, which is needed for that. Policy regulation is public, the public consultation. So that was my Christmas present from my team. 24th of 12th was put it in the public consultation. Import and export is done. The first natural monopoly for Earth observation was also done. I was also human capital development. So we signed 2,000 scholarships for masters, PhD, and bachelors for aerospace worldwide. So if you're a Saudi, if you want to go to Stanford because you're good, the kingdom will pay. 200,000 kids were trained. The first startups were coming. So all this stuff, therefore also I decided to say, now everything is on the road. Now it has to become better, lighter, smarter. But the big stones are gone. There's a reason also why I decided. So this was and when we go to the policy regulation, we said we have a very light space law, but a lot of policies, because this we can change. And the companies, you name some of them, Open Cosmos, Destinos, D-Orbit, Orotech, Isar Aerospace, they were told us how we have to build a policy regulation which is in favor of startups. So we have a very light regulation. We say, let's start with the market. We're even thinking about a high-flying sandbox with GACA, which is the FAA. So this is, but I think this is something where you build the cornerstones of the industry and teach or I would say lobby the VC community investing in space. That was also another part. Having now 5 new universities teaching aerospace engineering, including Prince Nora, just for ladies. So this is building the ecosystem. It's not only the companies. It's the regulation, it's the human capital, it's the money, and aligning with other industries like Aramco, other universities, and so on. So, and I have to say, I had 19 years in ESA, with the ESA BICs maybe 15. Here I had now 3.5 years, which was good.
And you literally built the space ecosystem twice, once in Europe, once in the kingdom. What do you think Europe at this current state can learn from the Saudis' space program and initiatives to become much more leaner, much more faster, much better for the entrepreneurs?
The budget, they will say, yeah, Frank, your budget is so small. Yes, it's small. But, and this is what I'm saying, and this is the discussion I have. Space is not anymore the final frontier. Space is at the front line of national security. So all this dual use, all what we see, we were sleeping in Europe. Yeah, because we say, it's okay. It will work. No, it doesn't. You know, I was 2 years in the Air Force. Alan Grove, the founder of Intel, once said, as a CEO, you have to be panic paranoid. Maybe not panic, but a little bit paranoid. If things are going too smooth, I get nervous. So sitting and waiting and hoping that in 5 years it will become better is the wrong thing. This I learned from my Saudi friends. And I really love to work there because it's a very embracing culture. It's really, either you like it or you don't. I love it. And this is, I think, if you need something is good, you get a meeting with the minister. You get a meeting with the deputy minister. Everybody in the government is committed to leapfrog the country. And this positive spirit, does it work every time? No. But it's normal that it's not always working. But first is the ambition. If only 80% works, perfect.
yeah, 80% of high ambition is much more than 99% of low ambition and stable. I totally agree
Here we
with you
go.
here.
Here we go.
Okay, great. And after 3.5 years being head of this program, and the space accelerator program, you ran space challenges, built regulatory sandbox, as you mentioned, got 2,000 university scholarship activated, and many more. And then you quit. So I'm very curious, what is your next step? If you can share with all of us, where is Frank going from now on?
Yeah, this is okay. It's 4 weeks from now. It's still Ramadan until end of this week, and then we have Eastern Europe. Definitely, one thing I will help. I'm working with the Orbit. I know Luca, the CEO of the Orbit, for 50 years. We want to build something in Saudi. I'm joining them as a chairman of the founding committee. Yeah, and the Orbit is a great company. There's one company in Munich for Earth observation. I tell not which one, but because I leave it to them to announce it. So I think where I can add value. Yeah, I don't want to be the CEO. I have to be the CEO of my own company. I really want to be in the cornerstones and see where I can help to grow others, where I can help in investment. I'm still sitting on the advisory board from Alpine Space Ventures. So I think they have done also a fantastic job, Bulent and Joram and the team, and showed that very selective. I love them. We need more of that. So maybe unblocking, maybe playing the mechanic in one or another organization or project. So that's the plan. Being a little
That's
bit
a
more
good plan.
valuable.
That's a good plan. Thank you so much for sharing your story, perspective, and insight. It has been very interesting, even for me. And now I would love to get into the last part of the episode, which are quick fire round questions. I prepared some questions. Some of them might be outside of story, but I just want to get your perspective on them. So let's get into that. What do you think is the most undervalued space opportunity right now? And by space opportunity from the market perspective.
The supply chain, the full supply chain.
That's a great, quick, brief answer. Next one. What do you think is the biggest red flag when evaluating a space startup team?
A scientist and researcher who want to build a commercial company and they're still doing research and science.
Okay, good one. Next one. How long do you think a space startup's runway should be?
Until you take off. It's like a plane. You have a big plane, you need a long runway. If you're a small plane, you need a smaller runway.
Okay, next one. You've seen hundreds of space startups fail. What do you think is the common reason promising space companies die, and how can founders avoid it?
Overcommitment leads to bankruptcy. So most of our engineers focusing on the engineering and the tech and not on the sales and selling. And if you run off your cash, your evaluation goes to zero. So hire somebody who's looking to the numbers and to the sales and business development.
Okay, next one. You've built ecosystems in both Europe and the Middle East. For founders choosing where to base their space company, what do you think are the real pros and cons of each region? And of course, other regions that are out there.
I think Europe is still great at the moment because space is booming. We see with the investments. First, I think you can be at more than one place. Maybe you have to find somebody. If you want to target GCC, Africa, Southeast Asia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia becomes the new Switzerland. You'd better do that from Saudi than from Europe.
Very good perspective. Okay, next one. ESA versus NASA. Who's got the better approach to supporting startups?
Of course, ESA.
Okay, next
but
one.
It can be better.
Yeah. Good reflection here. Okay, next one. What's the difference between a fundable space idea and just a research project?
It's a good one. It's a difference between idea and product. My previous boss and friend Jan Werner always said, innovation is only when it hits the product, the market. The rest is research. So and this is the fine line.
Okay, next one. Recently, there've has been a public narrative of Europe and also European space industry, that matter, being behind of everybody else. Do you agree with this? And if so, what can Europeans do to get back on the track of being more globally competitive?
I know that the European Space Agency, we have something for SMEs. 30% of all contracts goes to SMEs. And I said, I don't care about the number. Why it's not 30% of all contract volumes of the budget goes to SMEs? So I think if you want to build the future, you have to build on the startups and SMEs. And I would give them massive more.
And how we can make it real, actually. It's a very good shift that we need to do, but how can we Europeans make it happen?
There's an industrial policy in ESA, just say 30% of all budget of ESA should go to SMEs. That's it.
Plus that. Okay, great. And okay, I ran off my questions, so I will just close this down into a conclusion here. Okay, so Frank, there are entrepreneurs right now sitting in university labs or their bedrooms, for that matter, maybe struggling with crazy ideas in the space industry that everyone thinks are impossible, just like those early ESA BIC startups that no one believed in. You have now built the world's largest space entrepreneurship network and are pioneering a new space economy in the Middle East. What would you tell that person who is staring at their laptop at 2 a.m., wondering if they should start something that everyone thinks is just too ambitious in Europe?
Yeah, and number one, if the person is really willing to do that, because it's a hard way. Look what is, and he should imagine what will be the world in 5 years from now. And if he has an answer to that, look like K2 they had 3-4 years ago. If you have an answer what it happens in 5 years from now, you should invest your time, your effort, and your blood into that.
No, that's a very good practical one. Great. And the last thought for early stage space founders, especially in Europe watching this, you have supported over 1.8 thousand startups and generated over 1.25 billion euros in investment. You have seen the patterns of successes and failures. What do you think is the most important lesson you would want them to take away about building a space company in 2026?
Yeah, I think it's really the team. Yeah, and being in that way, follow your pathway without diverting, being a little bit stubborn. This consistency, having your curiosity also in mind, and not do that alone, having that as a team. Find the right team where you have the shared values and say, okay, we go this bitter way. So for me, the tech, I've seen the tech was never the issue. Tech was never the issue. It was the business case or the team. It was never the tech. So,
and we mentioned team many times here. If you remember, if you look into those biggest, okay, not success cases, but the biggest companies that went through ESA BIC as ESA BIC alumni, where do those teams found each other? On average, if you look at all of those together?
Of course, most of them coming out of university, they're coming out of looking to the people of Planet Labs. Luca, the founder of the Orbit, also started in NASA Ames. So NASA Ames was, I would say, a melting house of crazy ideas because it was so far away from headquarters. I think they try to fire Pete Warden once a month. So where you have these melting pots, these crazy, this is where you find brothers and sisters with similar thinking. So that it could be a competition, that could be I remember that the CEO of PLD and Raul from Open Cosmos, they were on rocket competitions together. Yeah, so this is where you find there is not one size fits all. I strongly believe also as a leader, the team finds you, not you the team.
Nice one, practical one as well. Okay, great. And is there anything last you would love to tell to the whole European space community, as a person that was inside of it all?
Yeah, if some people say this does not work, it's unfair competition, don't listen to them. don't listen to people which are bringing negative energy to you. Don't stop it.